Relayed messaging. Suppose your application needs to both send and receive messages, or you want a direct link between two applications, which is sender and receiver. And of course, very importantly, you do not want anything which is going to broker the messages. That means both sender and receiver are going to be online at every instance of time. Then it is the service bus relays which can be used as a solution. Relays components can connect existing services to new client without exposing the true location or address of the service. Let us understand this. Let us say we have a WCF service which is hosted on-premise. So we have an on-premise application which is a WCF service communicating with a local database for security reasons, and it is behind a firewall. Now we want to develop client applications which has to communicate with this service and take the benefit of its functionality. But this firewall we do not want to open for all the different client applications, because there might be n number of types of clients sending requests from n different locations. So how can this WCF service become available to all the different clients? Yes, that is where the service bus namespace is going to come into the scene. The on-premise WCF service is going to have a two-way communication with the service bus relay. And each of these client applications, which can be either within the cloud or outside the cloud, web role or worker role within the cloud, or some application outside the cloud, also will have a two-way communication with this service bus relay. So whenever a client has to actually communicate with this WCF service, client is going to send a message to this relay where the WCF service has already registered itself. And the client request is then going to be forwarded by the relay to WCF service. WCF service has to open the firewall only for this particular relay. It has to open the port only for the relay and not for all these clients. It will return the response back to relay, which in turn will be returned back to the client. So even if a new client comes up, the client will have to only communicate with the relay and does not need to have any information about the location of this WCF service. That means it remains location transparent. That's the beauty of the relay architecture in service bus. Say for example, the good example can be railway reservation system. We can have check-in kiosks. All these things are, let us say this is a railway reservation service, which we want people to use it from check-in kiosks or from mobile devices or from various other types of applications. And all this communication can happen through relay, and the reservations can be performed in WCF service. No one would have direct information about the actual location of the service. So to communicate bidirectional through relay, each application establishes an outbound TCP connection with service bus. Yes, we have to open the connection and we have to keep it open throughout the lifetime of the communication. Because each connection was established from inside the data center, firewall will allow incoming traffic to each application without opening new ports. That is the advantage I said already. This firewall doesn't have problem. Rather, actually, this will open connection with the relay. Relay will not open connection with the service. Service will open the connection with the relay and will only be receiving the request and generating the response with the relay. So firewall concern is not there. When the application wishes to receive a message, establish a TCP/IP connection with service bus. Relay is created automatically. So actually, these relays in service bus environment are dynamically created and dropped. They're not like permanent. On need basis, they will get created and they will be there for the lifetime the client or the service bus is making use of it. And once the connection is dropped, the relay will get deleted. I'm going to demonstrate this to you. To use service bus relays, the applications rely on WCF. Service bus WCF binding that makes it straightforward for Windows applications to interact via relay. So if you are a WCF programmer, what you generally do in WCF, the same thing you'll have to do in the relay also. So if basic HTTP binding is used in WCF, basic HTTP relay binding will be used in service bus environment. Just that relay is extra here. Net TCP, net one-way binding is also there. Event relay binding is also there. So let's now actually start with first logging into the portal. Here I should go for service bus. I don't have to go to more services. Search here service bus. Click and we will add a namespace. Let us call it as DSS demo service bus. Should be available now. Good enough. Pricing tier, subscription. We'll create a new group. If already there, use that. Location and click on create. Mind you, the service bus environment right now, what we are seeing in the portal is in preview. So when you're watching this video, probably certain changes might be there in the environment over here, but the basic architecture would still remain the same. The UI might change a bit. Refresh. So we have a service bus. Click on this, and here we have few topic we can programmatically add in case there is a need. An important thing is shared access policies. Here we can add a shared access policy. Of course, it's still creating actually. It's taking time. It's not created yet. So we'll have one shared access, root shared access policy already created, which will provide us the required permissions to work with the root manage shared access key. And the kind of permission it provides is manage, send, and listen, all the three. So this key will be required, this key and the connection string. Actually, we can copy the connection string itself. And as usual, we'll put it in the notepad for later usage. So I have a namespace. So like this, I can create one more service bus account, a new namespace, and that can be used by a different client. And that will have its own root manager shared access key with a different name. That's why we said earlier that it is a multi-tenant environment. So now we have to develop the client application and the service application. So I'll create a new project and I'll keep it simple by developing a console based application. I told you the application which is going to receive the request need not be in Azure, it can be in on-premise. So let us say in on-premise, we are developing a console based application, relay service bus demo server. And here we have to provide the contract, the service contract, operation contract, and of course, if there are complex data types, data contract. So I need to add the reference to system.service model. And here I'll write an interface, which is a service contract using system.service model, a public interface, let's say math service. And for demo purpose, I'll provide only one method. It's enough. Something similar to what we have done in WCF. And then I'm going to have a class which is going to implement this interface. But before that, I would like to have another interface No, let us not worry about interface. The second one actually we need in the client, not in the service. So we need to have a class which is, let's say, math service, and it should inherit from that, it should implement that interface, iMath service, providing implementation for the add method. So we have iMath, which is a service contract. Of course, add, I'll declare it as operation contract, and a class implementing it. Good enough. Now I would like to have a main which is going to register iMath service, that means math service, with the service bus. So for this, we'll have to create a service host. Now every service host is supposed to have the type of service here, which is math service in our case, and a endpoint. We have to add an endpoint. Now what is endpoint? Endpoint is actually going to be made up of three things. Endpoint is A, B, C, we call it, where A is address, B is binding, and C is contract. Address, binding, and contract. Every WCF service will have this endpoint. I'm going to show you two ways of having this endpoint. One is through code, and the other would be through configuration file. So add service endpoint, to which I have to add a endpoint object, service endpoint object. So first, implemented contract. Which contract is implemented, that we have to give. Yeah, I want to use this version. So I have contract, binding, address. See, contract, binding, address. For contract we need type of, which is I math service. Binding, now which binding we want to use? For this we have got, we want to use relay binding. So let us say net TCP relay binding, which is in, with control and dot, net TCP relay binding, quick actions. We'll see why it is not coming up. And third thing I have to provide is the address. How are we going to get the address? Why net TCP relay binding is not coming? Generate class. Okay. We have to add a reference to service bus. Search for service bus. Windows Azure dot service bus. Install it. And it is in the service bus namespace. See, Microsoft dot service bus. So now we have to create a address. Now how do we create an address? Address is supposed to be made up of scheme, which can be TCP or net TCP or HTTP, or different bindings are there. We want service bus address. So for that, we will have something called as service bus environment dot create service URI, wherein we have to give the scheme, which is SB, stands for service bus. That has to be like that only, comma the service bus namespace which we created, that is DSS demo service bus, comma the service path. So this path can be anything as per your requirement. I'll call it as math. We have to mention the same thing on the client also. So once we have this address, endpoint is created. So into this endpoint, we have to add a behavior also because we need to provide credentials. Service endpoint behavior we have to add. So where behavior. So how to add? Sorry, this is endpoint. Endpoint. Endpoint dot has a endpoint dot behaviors dot add. And here we have to provide the description, endpoint behavior description. To give you a new transport client endpoint behavior with certain properties, which is token provider. Now, what is this token provider? Token provider dot create shared access signature token provider, to which we have to pass the key name. This key name is the same thing which we have in this one. Let me copy this, comma, shared access key, which is here. So what we did here, we created a service host. With the service host, we have added an endpoint, and to the endpoint, we have added a token, security token, so that it can open the connection with service bus. And I'll just print the message, press enter to close or to stop the service. Console dot read line to ensure that it doesn't terminate. And once you say read line, you can say dot close. So this is the code. What we did, we created a service host. After creating a service host, we just created a address. So we have to actually create endpoint. And I said endpoint is combination of address, contract, binding, ABC. Address is used here, where scheme is supposed to be SB only because we want to communicate service bus. Net TCP relay binding, which is part of Microsoft.Service bus namespace. And then IMAC service is the contract. To the endpoint, we have to add a behavior comprising of the token because that is the one which is going to be used for authenticating. And we open the connection and run. Please control F5 and test it if anything is wrong here. We should get the message press enter to stop the service, and it is running. It means successfully our service got registered with the service bus relay. I stopped it. Where we can see that, for that we have to actually go to the old portal. In old portal only we can see that actually, the classic portal. Scroll, service bus, go deep, and we should have here relay. So see, right now there are no relays. Now I'm going to run this application again. Control F5. So this is going to get relay created. We'll have the relay created here. Yes. So just go and refresh back to relays, and the relay math is shown here. Let TCP. One is the listener. Just terminate this application, enter, close, and this will go away. You have to only refresh, go there, and come back. Okay. So relays are temporary. They are just created on the fly and they are there only till the connection is open. They're not permanently created and saved. Now I need to build a client. Client is going to be again something very similar. I'll create a new project. I'll call this as relay service bus client demo app. I add the reference to the NuGet package Microsoft.Service bus, and here we build a client. But unlike earlier case, here we'll have to create a channel and we will also need to provide the same namespace and the classes which we have on server structure. So I will go to server first. I mean the contracts. I'll just take the service contract, not the implementation. I don't want this service. And here, yeah, we have to add the reference to service model, system.service model. It's already there. We have to only, that's it. Now, we are going to have one more additional marker interface here. So I'll call it as interface iMath service channel, which is inherited from iMath service, that functionality we want. Also, we want is iClient channel. This is for actually providing close functionality. Now, how do we write a client? For this, we will have to create first a channel factory. New channel factory, a generic type, which is to support iMath service channel. And here I need to provide the endpoint configuration information. That means, as usual, we'll have to provide either the name, if it is a configuration file, but we don't have a configuration file, we want to do it to code. In such case, we'll have to provide the binding and the address. What is the binding? We wanted to use net TCP relay binding control dot Microsoft dot service bus, and we need to provide the address now. The last thing, which is new endpoint address, as usual, service bus environment dot create service URI SB comma DSS demo service bus comma the name, which is math. This is same code as on server. So once we have the factory, we have to also associate with this factory the token so that it can also register with the service. So factory dot endpoint dot behavior dot add new transport client endpoint behavior, to which we have to provide the properties, that is token provider, and token provider is constructed from a helper token provider dot create shared access service token provider, and here I give that same root manager shared access key comma the token. So whatever token I have here, same thing I'll copy once again and paste it here. That's it. All fine. Now we have to create the channel. So using is the best because we have to dispose it. Where channel is equal to factory dot create channel. So if you're not using a proxy, in WCF generally we use svc util.exe and generate the proxy class. And proxy class methods will have all this code. Because we want to use here custom behavior, we cannot make use of the proxy, and hence all this coding manually has to be done. And now we have to write whatever method we want to invoke, dot maybe add, and that's it. So when we exit, automatically it will close. To build this program, good. Now try to run this program without running the service, and we are going to get an exception because it will try to immediately relay the request, which is not possible. Endpoint not found. So terminate. Now I go to the service. Press Control F5. A relay is created, and I go to the client and run the client. And we should get the response from service. That is 30. Now we got the error. What is wrong now? Authorization failed. Generic. There was a authorization failure. Shared access key. If I give wrong name, root manager shared access key. It should be manage, not manager. Root manage shared access key. Now run the client again. It should work. Perfect. We can actually close this, stop this, relay will stop. I go to the service and here in implementation, just write request received. Just a message to print on the console. Now I go to the client and run the client. Control F5 I'm using for execution. This time what is there? Endpoint was not found. Endpoint does not exist. Why would endpoint does not exist? Maybe I ran the client before service could start. Let me run once again. Yes, it took little time. Now endpoint not found. I think the service should have stopped. Oh yes. By mistake, maybe I pressed enter and the service stopped here. So let's run the service once again. This should not stop. It should stay. Perfect. Now I go to client. Now I run. Request received and output print. So what is the advantage here? Client does not know the exact location of the service. And service not necessarily should know where is the client coming from. Everything is happening via the relay, which is built in service bus. So these things we can as well do through the configuration file. Now, all the steps are there in the handout. Now, what we'll do is, let us say, instead of writing all this code, we can as well do it through configuration file. So I'm copying this section services along with behavior. I'm supposed to add it under system.service model. So I go to server project, go to the configuration file, and we have here system.service model already there. Just add it. What are we doing here? No, let me remove this endpoint. This is TCP endpoint, net TCP endpoint. I'm not interested in that. Let me delete it. iMath service. My namespace is different. What is the namespace? Relay service. Paste that here. Same thing with implementation. So I have a service, only one service by name so and so math service, and it has a contract, binding, address, the ABC aspect of endpoint. And also we have a service behavior, SB token provider, and that behavior we have to create it as a behavior, endpoint behaviors as a behavior. This name and this name is supposed to be same. Some reason it is giving error, you can actually ignore this. You don't need to worry about it. And shared access token we have to provide here. So this key now is supposed to be the one which we gave earlier in code. So I'll copy this and I'll paste here. So what is the name given to the endpoint? There is no name. We are going to register by this type only, which is good enough. So what is the change I am supposed to now make in my code? So in code, we have a lot of things here. That is address, all these things I can actually comment. Not required because these things only have gone into the config file. And under the service, math service, all this is registered. Here, math service. Just run the program now. Control F5. Getting some error. Unable to reach DSS relay service bus. Okay. Copy paste problem. It is supposed to be DSS relay service bus SB. Close, close. Old instances should be closed. So we're still getting problem. Unable to reach DSS relay. It's not DSS relay. It is DSS demo service bus. That's the name we have given. Where is it? Address. DSS demo service bus. Same name we have to give here actually. Control F5. Beautiful thing is because it is in configuration file, we can change at any point of time. So instead of writing in code like this, it is always recommended to move all this into the configuration file like this. And something similar, we can as well do it in the client. In the client also, we can have a configuration file. So same, here it is client, and after client, we'll have to provide behavior. Go to the client project, in client project, app.config, under system.service model, paste all this. Yes, DSS demo service bus. The name has to be changed. Net TCP relay binding. Here we have got math endpoint. This math endpoint is what I'm going to actually use in code. So I just have to comment all this code. Actually, I can copy from the handout. I have to just say factory is equal to, that's it. One line. And all this code is not required. channel factory, IMAP service channel, and this name and the name here must match. And we are done. So we already have a server running. We can run the client. Just ensure that we have properly changed the name. Did we change the token? No, we'll have to change the token also. So I'll take the correct token from here, paste, and that's it. Now run this client. Perfect. So either do it through configuration file or do it through code. But we'll have to create an endpoint referring to the net TCP relay binding. Yes, those who have knowledge of WCF, for you this is comparatively much simpler when compared to somebody who does not have knowledge of WCF. But you can follow these steps and make the service work. From here, what is the enhancement? For new functionality, you have to only provide new methods in the interface. New methods have to be provided and their implementation has to be provided here. And if there is a complex data type, you'll have to ensure that it is declared as data contract. Rest all is clean and same. There is no change. All this code can be used as skeleton for any kind of WCF relay binding with service bus, server as well as client. Thank you.